Good. Let me share my screen. Just a second, starting the slideshow. Good. If I just give you the brief idea about what we had done last time around, no? Since last 3 to 4 lectures, we are there into the part of demand forecasting. Now, demand forecasting is an individual topic that is also a part of the one module. So we got to decide that how much weight we should put in terms of teaching efforts and learning efforts when it comes to the demand forecasting. Now, demand forecasting, the forecasting itself is a vast, gigantic topic for which there could be another subject, The predictive analysis which you do can also be related up to certain extent with the forecasting. Now, you can see that there is a specific subject allocated for this. So when it comes to using the statistical tools, the various softwares, various kinda analysis techniques, we gotta make ourselves limited to one topic. I mean, the demand forecasting should not be taking too much of overwhelming weight in the total module. So that's why we have already taken 3 to 4 lectures on this. I have deliberated quite a few number of methods for forecasting the demand when it comes to qualitative and the trend projections. For the qualitative methods too, we have explored 2 methods, if you can recall it. The one was the jury of executive opinion method, where we were just seeking the opinion of the experts based on the kind of expertise that they have sought. And the Delphi method, where the identity of a person from whom you are seeking the opinion was hidden, that was not revealed. And then we moved to some of the trend projection methods. Over there, we had seen, if you can recall it, the first one was, I guess, the linear regression. Now, linear regression again can also be a different topic for which you can have a different module. And if you go to the level of detail, it can have a different subject as well. Types of regressions. Then in the regression as well, you put, some of the complexities. We have seen a complexities, few of it, like if we have the categorical variables, then how we can use the linear regression, how we can put the dummy variables. Such type of things we have already seen. Then we move to exponential smoothing, which was done last time around. If you can recall it, we were giving the weights to the previous forecasted values and the current ones. And accordingly, we were forecasting for the next periods. And then there was a moving average. Now, when it comes to the moving average, there is one more topic which is related to the time series analysis. That is, auto-regressive moving average. So you people call it ARMA. And there is also one more topic, auto-regressive integrated moving average. Now, if we will go into this much of a details, just for the ARIMA model understanding, I think there would be a requirement of 2 to 3 lectures. Right now, if you understand the proportion, it's the demand forecasting, which is a part of the second module, or just a one topic of the second module. In that, the only thing that was given to us in the syllabus was the qualitative methods. We went to the quantitative methods as well by taking the numbers into account, But if we'll go into this much of a detail for ARMA and ARIMA for demand forecasting, then I guess we would be diluting a lot from the requirement of the subject, because that is not something which is the course outcome. I hope you are able to understand my point. What I'm trying to convey is that we have given the quite an enough weightage for the methods of demand forecasting. But since it is just a part of the entire module, we cannot give too much of time to this, because our main concern right now is not about using the statistical tools for the forecasting. Our main concern is to project finance and is about project finance and its appraisal. So we should be there in that course outcome. So I'm giving this justification because I think it won't be feasible for us to go to the ARMA and ARIMA model for the demand forecasting right now. Otherwise, that would be few more lectures, 4 to 5 more lectures just on these models, and we would be extremely diluted from our original course outcome. So that is the justification. Some people would be like 5 minute के लिए justification दिया, simple सा बता देते कि नहीं करना है. But you must be logically convinced about it. Okay, fine. Let's move ahead. There are certain casual methods for the demand forecasting now. And one of the casual methods is the chain ratio method. So first question which can strike in your mind is that, sir, what is this casual method first of all? See, here you make certain assumptions. And based on certain assumptions, you try to figure out the projections for the future, right? So what could be the assumptions, sir? See, the assumptions can be related to, some of the constraints, some of the details related to the demand. Somewhere you will have to find some figures. I guess rather than giving you the conceptual understanding like this, let's go to the example only so that you will be able to understand in a better way. So if we take one of the examples, in that casual methods as well, we have the first one, which is the chain ratio method, right? Now, in the chain ratio method, what do we generally do is, from the top to bottom, we try to figure out that what could be the potential sell from our side, what would be the potential sell from the company. So you have some detail related to the top. Say you have the detail like how many total number of, you know the total amount of coffee is being sold in the entire Saurashtra region. That is the one information which is something, a gigantic information, collective information for the entire region, a big information. After that, you have, let's say, what is the proportion of this particular type of a coffee in the total coffee market? So you have got to know that, sir, this particular type of a coffee has the market share of around 83 to 84 percentages. Now that was actually done by one of the companies in the US market. Specifically, if I give you the name, it was General Foods. They wanted to project the demand of the coffee products based on, the external information they had. So the first information they had, now they wanted to come up with a new product, which was the freeze fried instant coffee, right? So how did they project it? This is actually the case study I have taken here, but very few uh, uh, very few parts of the case study which are the most relevant are being taken into account right now, just for the better understanding. They first predicted, and it was not predicted, that was actually based on the historical data only, that the total amount of coffee sales would be somewhere around 174.5 million. Now that is something which is the secondary information they have sought from the outside market, right? Then proportion of the coffee used at home, all those people who are, taking the coffee at outside stores will not be included here, because they are not going to purchase this coffee product. They are going to anyway get the ready-made coffee from the restaurant, stores and retail outlets. So they identify that what is the proportion of the people who are using the coffee at home. They are consuming the coffee at home. So they came to know that, sir, 83% of the selling is related to that particular segment, those who are consuming the coffee at home, right? So that means you have come to know that what is the amount of quantity of coffee which has been used at home, that is 145.7 million units. So that's nothing but the multiplication of this two, right? After that, they had one more data, that what is the non decaffeinified coffee. Now this is a technical jargon, we are not supposed to go into that. This is a brand of, this is something related to a product description. In this particular product they were actually dealing. So they came to know that out of all the coffee which were used in the home, what is the proportion of the coffee which is caffeinated? That means uh, there is an element of caffeine over there. Do not go into the technical jargons, just assume it is a type of the coffee product. So they came to know that such 94 percentage is been consumed. This is the amount of coffee which is non-caffeinated. From that, they came to know that, see, we are right now dealing into the instant product, like that means you can just take the wrapper off, you can put it into some of the ingredients, and within just a minute or two, you would have the coffee prepared. So they came to know that 40% of the uh, coffee products are the instant coffee products. They wanted to go into that segment. So they identified that, okay, so around 54.6 million units, are related to the product in which we want to go. Now, from that, they had identified that what could be the potential share of market of our company. So they identified somewhere around 8% there could be a percentage share of us. Now, this could be based on some of the informations you already have. If I give you an example that, see, if you are coming up with the 10 lakhs of rupees, then you would obviously try to compare yourself with the previous performances of the other people, right? That if those people who had come up with the 10 lakhs rupees in the same market with a similar amount of resources, with a similar amount of technology, with a similar amount of capital investment, what was the share which they could capture? See, they could capture a share around 5% from the total demand with a similar amount of money in the past. So we can make some changes into it, some customized changes which are applicable just to our project. And based on that, we can predict that, okay, if that was 5%, I could be somewhere around 4% now. Because we have the similar type of resources, we have the similar amount of technology, we have the similar amount of capital investment, we have the similar type of a distribution channel too. If they could get the share of 5% in the total market, now we can get the share of around 4% in the total market with the new conditions. You identify that share as well now. Now, please, now there is always something which is a subjective element which is going to be there, which is anyway going to be there. You cannot make it extremely objective, 100% objective. Somewhere where you are taking the assumptions, something will always be there where the subjective element is going to be there. So while you make the assumptions, you will not be in a position everywhere that each and every assumption you are making is objective, is numerically justified. You will not be able to find the exact mathematical relationships between certain things, but based on the previous experiences of yours, based on the other industry practices, based on the performance of the other people who are operating in the industry, you will be making some assumptions. And from that, you can predict that, okay, so our total sales can be somewhere around 4.37 million units. Now, this may vary like anything, 20% up or 20% down or so on. But at least you have come to know that what can be your share if you come up with a similar amount of resources and if all the assumptions stands true. You have taken few assumptions, those could be the assumptions, those could be the calculated figures as well. So see, this is the calculated figure that if you take the second one, which is the 83%, it is a calculated figure. This could be based on the historical data too. And if you are unable to find the data, then you may take it as an assumption as well based on your interaction with the people who have got the knowledge. So it's basically top to bottom analysis. In the external environment, you first identify that what could be the amount of demand total, then percentage share of yours in that. Depends on the various factors. Let's take another example so that you will be absolutely clear with this. Now, this was the classic example of one of the companies which wanted to sell, the stainless steel for the blades of shaving, this, what do I call, the razors for male population. So all the male population were using the razors, no? Obviously, those razors would have the blades, and those blades are stainless steel blades. Now, this company wanted to produce the stainless steel for these blades. Now, they identified that, okay, what is the current population of the entire country, which is the adult male population who will be doing the shaving? Shaving. Some who are the English fanatics, no, people would be like, shaving nahi, shaving hota. Okay. Proportion of the adult male population using the shaving blades, 60%. You come to know that, okay, all the people are not using it. Some are still going to the barber, those who are the traditional in nature. They are still like, oh, मैं नहीं करूंगा. और कुछ बिगड़े बाप की औलादे होती है जिनको पैसे होते हैं 200 300 खर्च करने के लिए. Then we have adult male population using the shaving blades, right? So you just multiply these two figures. You come to know that, okay, number of times in a year a person who uses the shaving blades. So now you have come to know that, how many number of times a shavings are done. So if one person does it 100 times in a year, then total number of times, you come to know that these are number of times the shavings would be done in the entire country. That is coming around 9,000 million. Then proportion of shavings done with the stainless steel blades. All the shavings which are taking place, no? How much is the proportion where the stainless steel blades are used? So 40%. Then you have the idea that average number of shavings per stainless steel blade. I mean, in a one blade, you can do the shavings for 6 number of times, right? So you have got the figure that total number of shavings. You multiply that with the 0.40, so you come to know that what is the proportion in which the stainless steel blade is used, and you are further dividing that with 6, because one blade can be used for 6 times. So you come to know that what is the number of stainless steel blades which are used per year. So that is somewhere around 600 million. Now, what is the proportion of the share which this company can get? This is the total market. Now, their share could be somewhere around 20% in the entire year. So their potential sales can be somewhere, this is in quantity, can be somewhere in 120 million blades. Right? So it is top to bottom analysis. You identify entire gigantic population, then slowly and steadily you come and you reach to the minute details and you try to identify what could be your demand. May I have the confirmation from the students yet? It is the chain ratio method. Absolutely clear? All of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Now see, this method is very practical as well, I tell you. And many of the people who, see, when we wanted to do this, no, we were actually opening the stockbroking, this franchisee. And at that time, just a second. Excel file is not open. Anyway, fine, no worries. So when we were opening our stockbroker franchise, at that time, we were like, see, if we cannot identify that how many number of demerits we would have, so we started from the bottom actually. We were like, see, if we meet one new client on a daily basis between 6 to 7 p.m., which is the time we generally get, Now, some of the other partners in my firm would be getting the time at the different duration. But basically, we wanted to spend 1 hour and we wanted to go to a one client who will be making the investment in some portfolio. So every day, if you can approach a one new client, so in an entire month, you will be approaching the 30 clients, right? Now, if you'll be approaching 30 clients in the entire month, say everyone's, determination, conviction, and their convincing power would be different. But on an average, if we try to convert at least 10% of the people whom we are meeting on daily basis, so we would be able to convert 3 clients on a monthly basis, right? And if I multiply that with the 12 months I have, I would have 36 clients by end of this year, developed solely by me. I have taken a very, pessimist kind of a calculation. Out of 30, only 10% are getting convinced in whatever the plan which I am offering to them for the portfolio management. Now, even if I have 36 clients in a year, similarly, I have 2 more partners right now in my firm. And if we'll be doing it, so by end of the year, we would have at least 100 clients, 36 multiplied by 3. So at least 100 clients we would have who will be handling that portfolio through us. Now, let me just tell you that we have reached even more than that. But based on this figure, we came to that, we'll have to meet at least one client on a daily basis who is a new client. And we are just expecting 10% of the strike ratio here, not more than that. Now, here in this case, that how many number of clients I would have after a year, obviously this regression, this all sort of things, the fancy mathematics and statistics we use wouldn't have been too much relevant for us. A very simple kind of calculation that we had done. Now this specifically you can use when you have the constraint. We all are occupied in some or other sort of a things. We cannot get too much of time for this. We can spend not more than 1 hour for this in a daily basis. So that is the constraint we have. So first we decided what is the constraint we have. And based on that constraint, what we can give the best. So per day, per client was our target, nothing else. Forget everything, per day, per client. If one client is done on daily basis, that's it. Our task is done. So that is how you can plan it, from top to bottom as well as bottom to top. So that's called the chain ratio method. Here in the 2 examples we have seen, that is top to bottom. You can also make it bottom to top when you have the constraints. Here in this case, my constraint was that I cannot give it for the entire day. I can spend maximum 1 hour of time in my day. And based on that, we framed a strategy that, okay, we'll be meeting one new client on a daily basis. Whether they get converted or not, that's entirely a different matter. Now, why it is called a chain? Because you try to establish the chain of various variables. Putting together, you either try to reach to the bottom or you try to reach to the top. Is it clear? May I have the confirmation on this, please?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
Good. Now, one more. Now, why it is called the casual method? Because see, there were various assumptions over there. Casual methods do not have the specific rules and regulations. You cannot have the definite answers in the casual methods. Now, some people had predicted 120 million of sales over here in the last one. Now, there is a possibility that it can fluctuate like anything, it could be somewhere around 20 million or it could be somewhere around 140 million, because here the fluctuations would be too high. Even if you're one of the assumptions which you have taken goes wrong, out of the 5 or 10 in total you have taken, your entire predictions may go wrong entirely. So that's why here there could be various fluctuations. That's why it is called the casual method. You cannot have too much of definite answers in this, but when it comes to the constraints, when it comes to, layman understanding, these methods are very much practical and relevant to be used. Consumption level method. That is the second one we have. Let me just check that what's the time right now. Okay, 13:38. I guess I'll be able to give you the conceptual understanding. Calculation will take place in the next lecture. Fine. So here in the consumption level, you take again the historical data. But in the historical data, two factors which affects the most. What kind of an historical data you have? First of all, you have the idea that what was the quantity sold in the previous year, right? Now there are two things which affects the quantity sold in the current year. Now that quantity sold in the previous year, you may take it for the entire industry. You may take it for your competitor who is operating on the same scale. If someone is there who is operating with the same amount of money which you want to employ in your business, then based on that you can say that, okay, in the last month he had sold around 10,000 number of units. So if I am a new, I would be selling around 5,000 number of units, 50% of the capacity of him, with the same amount of resource and same amount of money I have, So based on this, I can make some of the corrections and projections. Now, if I get the last year's data, which might be related to the entire industry, might be related to your competitor, and you want to, draw the lines of your sales based on the sales of the competitor. So you take the quantity of the last one. Now, two factors which affects the quantity of the current month is, one is the income, another one is the price. Income level of a person also matters a lot, and the price of a particular commodity at which you are selling it also affects it a lot. Now here we'll be using the microeconomic concept of elasticity of demand. So what does this elasticity tell you? Now obviously, sir, if the income patterns of the people are getting changed, then that would have a direct impact on the quantity sold, right? Now generally you may observe that when the income levels of the people are getting increased, the quantity demand is also getting increased. So income would obviously be having the positive elasticity with the demand, but price will always have the negative elasticity with the demand, because that's the human basic psychology. Higher the price, the people will tend to purchase lesser amount of quantity, Now income elasticity would generally be in a positive, and this price elasticity will generally be in negative. So what is this elasticity? First of all, it tells you about the responsiveness of the demand. I'm using the words very carefully. Responsiveness of the demand due to the variation in the income. So if 10% of the increment is taking place in the income, then how my demand would respond to it? My demand would be responding 2 times or 3 times or 4 times as compared to the income, right? So that is something called the income elasticity. And similarly, you can also find the price elasticity, that say if you increase the price by 2 rupees, from the 10 to 2 rupees, you are going to 12 rupees now. By 2 you are increasing it. Then what is the effect on the quantity? So once you have the figure of this elasticity, then you can predict based on this elasticity that what could be your demand for the next period. If you expect, the income level to go at certain level, or you expect the price level to go at certain level. So basically two variables are there, price and income, and you want to predict the demand based on, the level of changes which are taking place either in income or in the price. So we'll calculate that how we can, in the next lecture, that how this income elasticity and the price elasticity will be affecting our demand. So we'll go into a bit of a calculations about that. Fine. So let me just end it over here. What we have done, let me just give you the idea again. We have completed the chain ratio method. in which you go either from top to bottom or you go from bottom to top. I have given you the examples of both, right? In my case, if I tell you about the stock broking, it was from bottom to top. So first you identify what is your constraint, then you identify that, how many number of clients will be meeting in that, and accordingly you predict the demand or the number of quantity and the items you will be selling in the year. Or it can be from top to bottom as well. But you must be absolutely very much convinced about the assumptions you are making there. You cannot remove the subjective element entirely, because all the assumptions you will not be able to find the objective justification to it. Somewhere you will have to put the reliance on opinions of the people, on the predictions of yours, on the emotions of yours related to those things. Everything cannot be expressed, cannot be measured mathematically. Fine, so that's it. That's why they are called the casual methods. See you all in the next session. You will be just putting your attendance in the chat box as a mark of your attendance. Put your enrollment number. That's it from my side. If you couldn't understand anything
Thank
or anywhere you require my support, please let me know. Yes, someone was saying something. I'm really sorry. Acha, she said thank you. Fine, no worries. Please put your attendance. See you all in the next session.